guys, welcome back to my channel. It's your girl Alicia here, and I know I am late, but since we are in the Christmas season, I had to do a lot of Christmas shopping. But we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about episode 7 of season 3 of the Ultimatum. Guys, let's get into it. So the episode begins with the changeover and the Lachey's talking about, recapping all that we have seen so far. Like this, a lot of the stuff that they were talking about could have been an email. So we start with Scotty and Zaina recapping their trial marriage experience. She starts off saying it was great, but near the end there, Scotty was starting to get trifling. I'm paraphrasing, but I know that's what she wanted to say. At the end there, Scotty was trying to get trifling. Then Scotty comes back and says, well, Zaina was inserting pettiness into their marriage. And I know the king of petty is not trying to say something like that. I know the king of petty is not trying to start stuff. But what really grinds my gears, if you will, was JR hopping on the bandwagon talking about Zaina can be petty. Zaina, he don't like you. I was trying to hold out hope for JR because, a lot of people were judging him based off of like first looks, and like he seemed like he would just coast in a relationship, but they have been together for 3 years. So I was still holding out hope that like maybe JR wasn't good with expressing his feelings or something. Like I was giving this man the benefit of the doubt for real, because even though he hadn't spoken super well about Zaina, he hadn't spoken super negatively about her either. But to see the way JR acted to Zaina compared to Sandy in this episode, it just confirmed that he does not like her for real. And then next we move on to JR. He says that that was when they were talking about or when Scotty was saying how Zaina inserted pettiness and everything, and he felt like his character was being attacked. And so JR comes back and he was saying, like I may have said some stuff that was a little hurtful, but Zaina can be super petty. And then Scotty ends by saying that Zaina has qualities that will make her a great wife one day. But again, we all know this. My issue isn't that Zaina may or may not make a great wife. My issue is that the men that she is trying to get with, I'm not really counting Scotty since that was for the purposes of the experiment, but like JR, the men that she's staying with and wanting to marry are not ready to be husbands. And then so Caleb and Arya go next. Caleb opens up about how when someone says they want to marry him, his first instinct is to question why, and he realized he has a lot of work to do internally. I'm glad that he said that, because looking back on Caleb's behavior, because I think he was also opening up in this episode about how he was resentful of being brought onto the process at first, and so he had to kind of look at himself and decide, am I going to stay resentful, or am I going to really lean into this process and try to do some self-reflection, self-work, and everything like that. Because a lot of people can't admit their shortcomings, but I do also feel like there's only so much there's only so far self-reflection can take you. I like that Caleb is recognizing that he does have a lot of internal work to do, but at the same time I wish that he would seek therapy to kind of really work through those deeper issues, because having an outside stranger opinion sometimes helps us open up in ways that we normally wouldn't, either with ourselves or with our partner. So because I feel like if the marriage is going to last, whether he picks Arya or Mariah, he's gonna have to get to the point where he is more self-confident, because that statement right there told me that he is still struggling with his self-confidence. And whether that's because he hasn't been receiving any compliments or any reassurance from his previous partners, not even just Mariah, his previous partners too, or if it's some self-sabotage that he's got going on, he needs to try to work through that before he really goes into a marriage. And then Aria goes next. She opens up about why she wasn't ready at first, and then she was able to solidify those reasons, which I like, because again, I don't think right now that Aria is ready for marriage. I also think that she too has a lot of like internal work that she needs to get through before she is ready to go all in with somebody. Because yes, while she was making good progress with Caleb, I felt like she was still, there were still places where she was almost holding herself back in a sense. And I feel like again, she could benefit from therapy and really digging into those issues with somebody who can help her see those aren't weaknesses, and having internal struggles is not a bad thing. It's just part of life, but here's how you can get through it. You know what I mean? So, and then she also talks about how she appreciates his calmness as compared to Scotty. The way Scotty was looking when Aria was talking, I said, Aria, he does not like you either. I need my girls Aria and Zaina to be free of these men. I want them to choose themselves so bad at the end of this process, because the way Scotty was looking at Aria and the way Scotty had looked at Zaina during their trial marriage, I said, oh, this man is not. It was almost like he felt like he was superior to them in a way. And then Aria also talks about how she doesn't want to overstep with Mariah, but if she and Caleb were married, they'd be a great couple, because she felt seen and he made her feel as though she was enough. And I love that. I love that, quite honestly. Let me preface this by saying, don't ask questions that you don't really want the answers to, okay? I feel like that's going to be the theme of this episode. Don't ask questions that you don't really want the answers to. After after Aria and Caleb are done talking, Mariah looks at Aria dead in the face and is like, look, are you feeling Caleb or not? Are you wanting to pursue Caleb romantically or not? And Aria's like, well, she loves Scotty. She came with Scotty. But Caleb has the qualities that she wants. And then she's like, does that answer your question? And no. Aria should be a PR specialist, a PR analyst, a PR person. Like, she should be that, because the way she can like sidestep around a question is perfect for PR folks. Like, that does not answer your question. I mean, it kind of does, because if you read into it, she's saying Caleb has the qualities that I'm looking for in a husband. And so now that I know what I'm looking for, I can see if Scotty, my original partner, has those qualities. And if he does, then we will be married. If he does not, then I will walk away. Or you could look at it as Aria saying, while I do love Scotty and I did come here with him, Caleb showed me that sometimes the grass might indeed be greener on the other side, and I'm trying to hop the fence. If the opportunity ever presented itself, I'm trying to hop the fence. I'm not gonna do anything while you and Mariah are together. But if Caleb was ever a single man, I'm sliding in those DMs. Mariah and Nick go next. I didn't write much about them because, again, Mariah's time was mainly spent in like the self-help books and like the 7 ways of romance or whatever, which is fine. I'm not knocking that. But she didn't really have a lot of like drama or anything really going on. And then Nick, we all saw how he spiraled and everything. So even when he and Mariah would link up and talk, it was mainly Nick complaining, and then Mariah would say like 1 or 2 things, because I feel like, again, Nick did not give her the floor to really speak. And I feel like Mariah would have benefited from having a sounding board, even though I don't know if Nick would have been the best to bounce things off of because of the way he was handling his own situation with Sandy. But even though Nick is the one that drops the bomb when he talks about how he really spiraled, especially after Sandy and JR kissed, the way Zaina looked when Nick brought up the kiss, I said, oh, so JR never thought to tell Sandy. I mean, never thought to tell Zaina that they kissed. She looked so distraught. I said, oh. But this is also how I know that JR does not really like Zaina all that much, because she was looking very upset about the fact that she had to find out that JR and Sandy kissed from Nick, not JR. So she was already upset about that. JR and Sandy go next, and he's talking about how like Sandy is great and all these wonderful things. Mind you, he has not once looked at Zaina, mouthed I'm sorry, nothing. He is paying Zaina dust. Meanwhile, he's listing all these things about Sandy, and then he brings up the fact that her mom invited him for Christmas and he may take her up on that offer, and he kept going. I said, JR is another one that does not have any room to talk about pettiness, because that's petty to the max. How could you? Knows he was wrong for that. And then he continues to take little like baby shots, little strays at Zaina, but he's throwing like the bazookas at Nick, like just not so subtly going in on him. And then Nick is like, yeah, it was all me, and Jared was like, or no, it was either Jared or Sandy said, who was it if it wasn't all you? And he was like, you. It was Sandy. Nick was like, you texted me and said you missed me. And I said, okay, where you going with this, Nick? And Sandy was like, yes, but just because I text you and said that I miss you because y'all are original partners, that doesn't make sense. Does not mean like now you can text me 100 times, call me 100 times, show up at the apartment, you know, crash out, hang up, call me back, hang up, call me back. And I said, yeah, it's not the same. Argue with the wall, it's not the same. And then Sandy starts crying. Now, do I think these are white women crocodile tears? Yes, very much so, because Sandy will say something valid, and then as soon as Nick tries to like rebuff her or like argue with her, she starts crying. Have you all noticed that? Because I noticed that. Weaponizing her tears a little bit, I'm just saying. And so then JR and Nick have like a silent fight to give this girl a handkerchief. Mind you, Zaina was tearing up earlier. JR had no inclinations to give her his handkerchief, but now Sandy over here crying, and JR starts reaching. He starts trying to shuffle for his little handkerchief. Nick sees that, smoothly pulls out his own handkerchief and hands it to Sandy, and you could just see Nick. You could just see JR being like, dang. Dang it. Oh, but then also during JR and Nick's back and forth on whether Nick was doing too much or not, Caleb did not stand up, but he did step up and say, you know, during guys' night, as soon as Nick walked in the room, he did apologize to JR. He did apologize, but I still said that the apology was inauthentic, and I'm stuffy, y'all, so I'm sorry if my voice sounds a little weird, but I do still stand by the fact that the apology was inauthentic, because while Nick did say I'm sorry at first, he went on and the rest of his apology was just filled with excuses. Caleb said, you know, even after Nick apologized, JR still continued to make little smart remarks and jabs at him throughout the night. I said, okay, Caleb, not you standing up for what's right. Even though I did once again agree with JR when he said the apology wasn't authentic. It wasn't. But just like Nick has to be responsible for his own actions, JR is also responsible for his own actions. Just because the apology wasn't authentic didn't mean that you had to continue to stoop low and throw jabs at this man all night. But then again, that whole segment of them going back and forth, Nick and JR, was too long. This is why I say the Lachey's need to go ahead and pack it up, because they don't know. Either they don't know or production is telling them not to interfere when stuff goes on, because some of these segments be going on for way too long. And I'm like, y'all as the host should be telling them to wrap it up. The Lachey's pipe up. I didn't write much about, or really I didn't write anything about what they said, because again, they just be saying generic stuff, honestly, that you can find on the portrait. Like, before I continue, when Nick and JR were going back and forth and Caleb had popped up about how JR was still taking jabs at Nick even though he apologized. Nick said something key that at first I had missed. Okay, he said the problem with JR was that, or the reason he was bringing up the fact that Nick apologized was just because he felt like it was about listening and understanding in that moment. And he feels like, and I feel like that sums up JR a lot with his relationship, because Zaina will say stuff, JR don't be listening to her, but Zaina doesn't listen to JR either. So I feel like when you have a pair of people who don't listen, you get a relationship that looks like JR and Zaina's. So we cut back to Nick and Sandy in their apartment now. And I had said, like, Nick's wild behavior aside, I don't feel like Sandy was trying to hear that the core of the issue was that she hurt him because he found out that she had kissed somebody else. Like, even if y'all talk about it, talking about it is one thing, but when you were in the moment, it is still going to hurt. And then Nick promises to walk away if his behavior does not permanently change. We'll see. We switch over to Aria and Scotty. Aria brings up how she wants to go back to having fun and joking and laughing, which is valid because clearly there's been a lot of like tension in recent, maybe a month or something, of their relationship. Scotty, instead of saying that's a great idea, how do you want to go about doing that, the first words out of his mouth are, yeah, but we work a lot. So just because you work, you can't have fun? And then he also said, like, we work a lot and we don't live in the same city. But aren't y'all living in the same city, in the same apartment right now? Scotty, do you want to be with Aria for real? Or do you just want a plug and play partner where as long as you dictate and she follows, you're good? Think, Scotty, think. Oh, and then I also think Scotty is salty because the way he says what I'm about to say, it gives the energy that she makes more than him or something along those lines. Because he also, when he brings up her job, he says, what's the point of having all that money if you don't spend it on the people you love and care about? Once again, Aria brought up how she wants to have banter and joking and laughs with you, and you go on this rant about how y'all don't live in the same city, y'all work a lot, and Aria has a lot of money that she's not spending on him, I'm assuming. Does he spend money on her though? Let's get into the nitty gritty. Like, is he spending money on her and they've gotten to the point in the relationship where like he wants, if they go to the movies, he pays for the tickets and she pays for the popcorn? Is that the issue? Like, what? When he brought that up, I was very confused because what's the relevant? Okay, what did I say the theme for this episode was? Don't ask questions you don't what? Want the answers to. Exactly. Because Scotty asked if there was a physical attraction for Aria and Caleb. Aria says at first, or no, Aria says that she feels Caleb was attracted to her, and that at first she wasn't as attracted to Caleb, but their emotional connection deepened to the point where she started to feel that physical attraction. The way Scotty's face screwed up, because she was talking, he was like, because he was like, was there physical attraction? And as she talked, he said, again, Scotty, don't ask questions you don't want the answer to. We go to Mariah and Caleb. At first they're doing good, okay, right? At first they're looking cute. But then Mariah asks if his connection with Aria is more than friendship. He said not to read too much into it because there was patience and understanding between him and Aria. And Mariah was spot on saying somebody lying. I still think it's Caleb. I still think it's Caleb because Aria has been upfront about the attraction she feels for Caleb. Caleb is the only one that keeps downplaying his feelings. We get to Zaina and JR. Zaina is visibly upset. JR still takes way too long to comfort her. And so Zaina asks about the kiss. And so he tells her that they kissed twice and that they cuddled almost every night. Because first he said they cuddled, she said every night. And he was like, well, not every night. JR, please. And that they caught feelings and they had a good ride, but it's over now. And that he probably will not leave with her. And I was with Zaina when she said probably. No. Once again, Zaina, choose yourself. Aria and Scotty go on this cute picnic date. I feel like Scotty and Mariah have the same problem where they can only, or maybe it's the editing, but it seems like they can only have fun with their partner for so long before they have to interrupt it with a serious conversation that will just put both people in a bad mood. because the picnic date was cute. Like, Scotty clearly knows how to plan some cute date, but then he'll go and he'll ruin it by asking a question he knows will put both people in a bad mood because they don't know how to communicate. So Aria does a good job of laying out what she wanted, which was seeing where she was coming from and having fun banter with Scotty. Scotty says she may have gotten lost in the trial marriage because the relationship didn't have all of their baggage. Once again, missing the point of the conversation. Once again, making excuses for why you can't give Aria what she's point blank asking you to give her. And he still wants to give her every excuse under the sun for why he can't do that, instead of just saying, okay babe, I hear you. Thank you for telling me that. I will try to work on that. It's frustrating, quite honestly, because I don't understand why Scotty is so defensive unprovoked. And instead of Scotty really taking that in, really digesting that, and then trying to think about what is it from Aria that he really needs or really want, he goes on to make excuses. And then when Aria tells him, it felt like you were more concerned with trying to defend yourself instead of trying to see where I was coming from, that's the fundamental issue. Until Scotty gets over that, they will never work. And I've seen some other reviewers say that Scotty must have forgotten he issued the ultimatum when he says he's having hesitations about her and the decision. I don't think he forgot. I think when he said that, he was hoping that Aria would basically beg him to stay and say that, like, she would change. Scotty was using the ultimatum and the promise of marriage to dangle in front of Aria so that she would stay with him no matter what his behavior. Because maybe at some point in the relationship, Aria did say that she did eventually want marriage, and most women do desire marriage. So I feel like Scotty was trying to weaponize that in the moment. So I don't think that Scotty forgot that he issued the ultimatum. I think he forgot that Aria was already having hesitations about him. We pop back over to Mariah and Caleb. They're not having fun with each other at all. This is what I mean when I say I feel like they can't go too long without stirring something up. And I feel like there is a time and a place for everything. If your relationship is always heavy, your partner is not going to want to stay, because that in and of itself is emotionally draining. Having heavy conversations is emotionally draining. That's why you have to balance it out with the fun and the lighthearted conversation. You gotta have some fun times in there so that when you sprinkle in the heavy conversations, y'all both know it's coming from a place of love and not a place of judgment. And that's why I'm divided on Mariah, because I hear Caleb when he says he feels like every time she brings something up, she's judging him. And then I also hear Mariah when she said that isn't her intention. But the way that she brings it up every time, it feels like she is judging him. Mariah could also benefit from a therapy session or two, so that she can learn how to bring stuff up in a way that is not combative to her partner. That also comes with time. Mariah and Caleb have only been together for like a year, I think. Almost 2. So that's not, in the grand scheme of things, that's not a lot of time to really like learn your partner, learn their triggers, learn how they handle different conversations, and learning how to navigate difficult conversations with your partner. Caleb and Mariah are sitting outside, and Mariah is like, hey, let's do this thing where every time I want to bring up something serious, I tell you I'm coming at you like a friend. And Caleb said, you know, I don't even want to do that. That sounds dumb, because I feel like we should already have that mindset. They are on 2 different planes of understanding. Caleb already feels like that's a given. Mariah, I feel like, does not, because of her upbringing and everything else. The way she talks about her childhood and everything else, I feel like she was not used to being spoken to from a place of love and understanding and all that kind of stuff. Whereas Caleb might be more used to that. So to him, it's natural. To Mariah, it's not. And again, that's just speculation. That's just assumption on my part. But I understand what Mariah was trying to say when she said, let's talk from a place of friendship and things like that. We switch over to Sandy and Nick. She tries to bring up her desire for quality time, and Nick makes excuses. When Nick did that, honestly, I wanted Sandy to choose herself right then and there. Like, I wanted her to choose herself throughout this whole process, but that solidified it for me. That was the final nail in the coffin, because Nick threw tantrums, spit outs, crash outs, all this other stuff. Then when y'all finally get back together, you don't even want to spend any quality time with this girl. And then the way he talks to her, I don't like that either. And then we find out that Sandy has decided to withhold sex. I would too. You don't want to spend any quality time with me. You crashed out on me. The only time you really want to talk to me, not crazy, is when you bring up the fact that we're not getting physical. Ew, no. We check on Zayna and JR. They're getting mani pedis. Zayna says that they're good because JR had asked her, like, if we get married, are you going to bring up the kids down the road? And Zayna says no, they're good. As long as JR is leaving Sandy alone, she has no issue. And as long as he didn't lie to her. But I feel like he did. We all saw the footage. Well, maybe they didn't sleep together, but I feel like they were doing a lot more than kissing and cuddling. Zayna asked him, I think, what would be the difference between you as a boyfriend versus you as a husband? And JR says that he's used to being uprooting, or he's used to uprooting his life and making decisions for his family and not just himself. But the way he talked about it, it's clear that he and Zayna have two different ideas of marriage. JR thinks that marriage is about the man having it all together, being the sole, like, maybe not the sole provider, but the main one in charge of the household. So making the decisions, making sure everybody's taken care of, basically shouldering the burden by himself. And Zayna views marriage as a partnership. They are sharing the burden together. They are sharing everything together. So decision making should be made together. Finances should be looked at together. Making sure that everybody's taken care of, that should be done to, like, that should be a shared thought, not just put on the guy. And I think that might be why JR was taken so well to Sandy, because Sandy definitely gave the vibe that, like, she would let JR do all that by himself, whereas Zayna wants to go into a partnership. JR is not the man for her, because I feel like until he does some therapy and really goes into, like, how his upbringing affected him for real, he will never be able to see the validity of a partnership. Asking for help is not a weakness. Relying on somebody else is not a weakness. And I feel like until JR can really sit with that and really understand that, he's never going to be really ready for marriage. He does say Zayna has been the best girlfriend he's ever had, but he sure don't be acting like it. We check out Aria and Scotty. They're cooking. They're having fun. We pop back over to Nick and Sandy, even though I do feel like Scotty was rushing it a little bit with flirty comments and stuff. But hey, Sandy is upset in the bed, and she's saying how she struggles with opening up when she's sad. And instead of Nick saying, well, what can I do to make you feel safer opening up to me, or anything like that, he says that, well, when she's mad, she has no problem saying what the problem is. We're not talking about that right now. Sandy is trying to open up to you and say that she struggles asking for help when she's sad. That was the perfect opportunity for Nick to step in and really try to be understanding as a partner, instead of trying to be slick and have a smart remark. I see why Sandy struggles with opening up when she's sad. If that's the response that she's met with, I wouldn't want to open up either. We get to the group meetup, right? Zayna makes a joke about them all getting matching tattoos, and then Sandy reveals that Nick has a similar tattoo to JR, and the way everybody was looking was the way I was looking. That's weird. That's strange. Aria, Caleb, and JR and Sandy clearly missed their partners. It cracks me up. Especially because Aria was talking about how Caleb doesn't really flirt or something like that. Well, Aria was looking so disgusted. And then JR and Sandy moved to like a little table, and they're talking about how he's making her breakfast and stuff like that. And then JR feels away because he tells Sandy that Zayna told him that Sandy told her that their connection wasn't that deep, wasn't that serious. I feel like this was a case where JR might have been falling for Sandy a little harder than Sandy was falling for JR. Sandy, I feel like, viewed JR as an example of the grass could be greener on the other side in some cases. Like, she does not have to put up with Nick's foolishness all the time. She could find somebody else. So it could have been anybody, I feel like, that Sandy was paired up with in that experience. The lust may not have been there, but I feel like her conclusions would have been the same, where she does not have to stay with Nick if she does not want to. And again, JR told Zayna it was over. So what does it matter how Sandy feels? Y'all aren't getting back together, according to you. Nick and Zayna go off the top. I peeped that when Nick pulled Zayna for a chat, Sandy was looking mad uncomfortable. So Nick is apologizing to Zayna for bringing up the kiss, because he didn't, in that moment, he admits that he was not thinking about her, but he does feel bad for how that came about. Zayna says that's fine, and how she slips in the second kiss. She slips in the second kiss, and guys, the way Nick's face just drops. I said, oh. I said, no. After the group meetup, we go to Sandy and Nick, And Nick is like, is there anything that you want to tell me? Anything at all that maybe Gerald would have told Zaina? Sandy's like, okay, we kissed twice. Nick is like, what were you gonna tell me? I was with Nick because what were you gonna tell me? Now I agree with Nick that it's BS that Sandy tries to play the semantics game. Oh, you didn't ask me but I asked you, but you told me about the first kiss. So if you would tell me about the first kiss, why would you not tell me about the second kiss? Or the third or the fourth or the fifth or the sixth? Because they kissed more than twice. If you keep lying about that, well, what else is there for me to uncover? When he asked her when was she gonna tell him, she said after filming. After filming, Sandy, that's diabolical. But then Nick says after we were engaged. But notice how she didn't say after we were engaged. She said after filming. All right, Nick, you got too much dip on your tip there now. All right, she didn't say she agreed to marry you now. But we will see what happens in episode 8. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really appreciate it, and I will see y'all in the next one. Bye, guys.